Hello, my name is Gareth. You're watching the Hub Online Network, and today we have MLA Jackie Tegart in the studio. Jackie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and Happy New Year, Gareth. It's great to be here, and it's great to see the sun shining out today after that long, cold week last week.
You know, it's still trying. Yesterday it went from nice, it snowed in the morning, to hot during the day, and then last night it just gave us way more snow, and now the snow's almost all gone.
You bet, and I'm working from home, and so I sit at my kitchen table and I look at all the weather patterns as I do my Zoom calls and answer emails, but it is nice to be home.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And now, okay, so how long have you been home for?
Well, I was in Victoria for the 2-week session in December, and then of course I was in Victoria during the month of July when we had an emergency session. Okay. So I've been home all those times in between.
Well, let's go back to the last time that you and I spoke, which was the day before the snap election was officially announced. So let's talk about your campaign. What was your campaign like? What were some of your ups and downs? What did you find interesting this time around?
Very odd campaign, and one that was quite a slog. And partly because what I enjoy doing during a campaign is attending events, knocking on doors, meeting and greeting people. And that's what gives me energy, is to talk to people about some of the issues they're interested in, and then to be able to take those and advocate for those people in Victoria. This campaign, we had one rally over in Merritt, and it was a car rally, which was lots of fun. We had about 50 cars come to a site. Andrew Wilkinson was visiting the riding, and it was great. Anytime people liked what you said, they honked their horns. It was sort of like being the star at the drive-in.
Weird.
But it did generate that energy. But the rest of the time, we had made a decision as a campaign team that because of COVID, we were not going to knock on doors. People are pretty scared and pretty concerned about the spread of COVID. So our campaign made a decision that we would not be door knocking. And that was for the campaign workers' safety and also for those people at home. So it was very different. It was a lot of telephoning, it was a lot of mail outs, a lot of social media, those kinds of things. But it was, the thing I missed the most was the interaction with the people. In this particular election, you were up against 4 other people. Now, I don't remember the last time I've ever seen 5 people on a ticket for one riding before. I'm not sure how often that happens. Well, yeah, we had a full slate this time, yes. And yourself and the NDP candidate, Aaron Shumahetsa, had probably the 2 bigger campaign promises. His was the 24/7 hospital in Ashcroft, and yours was, I want to say $2 million, but I don't want to put words in your mouth because I forget. I want to say $2 million for Mcabee Fossils. Yes, and we were very committed to develop Mcabee, and it is a project that I'll be working on advocating for with the government in regards to what an asset Mcabee is for the region. Now, just for clarification, and because I've never actually been in a position to be able to ask stuff like this before. So when promises are made during a campaign, and now in your case, you won the riding, but your party didn't win overall. Yes. And in Aaron's case, Aaron didn't win the riding, but his party won overall. Yes. So how do promises work when that's a situation? Well, I think that in my situation, we've put the government on notice that Mcabee is an important project in this region by our promise, right? And all parties watch what the promises are, what the region needs, what the input from the region is. Same with having the promise of the healthcare improvements here in our community and our region. We will hold John Horgan to account for that promise. Okay. Even though Aaron didn't win, that promise was made to the community. They won a majority government, And it's my job as the MLA for the area to make them accountable for those promises. So we're working with the community and with the local health group, and we'll be lobbying on behalf of the region to improve healthcare services to the region.
So now for yourself, as you're going through the campaign, the actual election night happens. I don't know if you saw Barbara and I we stayed up until 11. We sat here in the studio talking back and forth about what's going on. And at the end of the night, we could not give a definitive answer because of mail-in ballots. Yep. So now you had to wait an extra 2 or 3 weeks before the final result came in. What were your thoughts in that in-between time?
Well, it felt like forever.
Yeah.
And, you know, we always have ballots that are late. And usually they tend to trend towards whatever happened on election night. But the number of ballots that were outstanding this time round really made it difficult to give any hint of where it might end up. And of course, the media called me as the winner. But quite honestly, I said many times, until the last ballot's counted, we won't know who the winner is. Fraser-Nicola is always a swing riding. It is always won or lost by less than 1,000 votes. And we know that it can go either way. So to me, it's we campaign till the last minute. Every vote counts. And living proof every vote counts as we watched across the province the counting of the mail-in ballots. I won by, I think it was around 289 votes.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep. I mean, Peter Millibar won by less than 200. Jordan Sturdy, the Green candidate, was called on election night, and Jordan ended up winning in the final count by 43 votes. So every vote counts. And it is so important that people make the effort to mark a ballot, because we as Canadians have that right. And don't ever think that your vote doesn't count.
Inspiring words.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so now election's done. You're in. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
What does your next 4 years look like?
Well, of course, we had a bit of a disruptive evening on election night. Certainly didn't see the results that we were hoping for. We had our leader step down, announce that he was stepping down. As a party, we needed to put an interim leader in place, which we did. But we all had to wait until the final count and then start putting things back together. So we've done the foundational work. Shirley Bond is our interim leader. Okay. She is very experienced, has been an MLA for quite a number of years.
What's her riding?
Her riding is Prince George Valemount.
Okay.
So.
Oh wow, that's.
Yes.
It's not a
She's
coastal person.
From the center of British Columbia.
Interesting.
And you know, she's put together the senior management team. I am thrilled to be. I was thrilled to be asked to be the education critic, and so I'm learning how to be a critic, because for 5.5 years I've been the caucus chair, and just before the election, I had indicated that I was not going to run for caucus chair for this next term, and so I'm thrilled to be the critic for education.
So what do you get to do? Like thumbs up, thumbs down to certain policies, or what's your role as that?
Well, I'm learning what the role of the critic is, but it is our job to hold government to account. Okay. And during COVID, I'm seeing a lot of concerns being expressed by parents, by staff, by teachers, about what's happening in schools. And I think everyone's common interest is quality education for students in a safe environment. And everybody has a view on what that looks like and what a safe environment looks like. So I've been contacted from people all across the province. I've reached out to stakeholder groups and set up quarterly meetings with all stakeholder groups in the education system. I last week did a Zoom call with a grade 5-6 class to talk about how important your vote is and how important it is to be involved in your community. So it's a little bit of everything, but I think it's important that people understand that in your position as opposition, it is to hold government to account. So we've received $242 million from the federal government to provide safe environment for students in school during COVID.
Okay.
So I've recently sent a letter to the Minister of Education asking for her to be accountable for those dollars. Where have the dollars gone? We've got a group of parents who are very concerned about air quality in schools because masks are not mandated from K to 12, just for some of the kids. And parents are very, very concerned about air quality in schools, knowing now that droplets stay in the air longer than we first thought. And so my question to the minister is, how many dollars has been spent on ventilation upgrades? Right. That's a question that parents are asking, and that's a question that I've put forward to the minister.
Well, watching the Bonnie Henry updates,
yes,
and then reading the comments, a
yes,
lot of people are calling for mandatory masks in schools.
Yep.
Is that something that you feel do you feel that the ventilation would be adequate, or do you think that masks in schools is foreseeable next step if numbers don't continue to go down?
Well, I think that we have an obligation to ensure that we have every level of protection possible. Mm-hmm. So you know that the more we learn, the better we should do on providing those levels of protection. So as we learn more about how COVID is spread, we look at the numbers of exposures in school. We truly believe, and most people that I talk to believe that children are best suited to be in school. They want to be in school. But are we providing every level of protection we can? And it is government's responsibility to answer that question. So as the opposition critic, those are the questions I ask. Okay. How many dollars spent on ventilation? Why are we not looking at masks being mandatory? And parents are leading the way on many of those questions. And I get approached by many parent groups, many parents individually, to say, I'm really concerned about this. And we take a look and we advocate on behalf of those people who are expressing those concerns.
So the next time you go back to the Legislative Assembly is when?
Well, normally we would have gone back the first week of February. Mm-hmm. Yesterday would have been the day that the budget was actually tabled. Okay. This government, when it called the snap election, said that nothing would be delayed, that the snap election would not delay anything in regards to COVID, and it would not delay government services. Well, here we are. They have delayed the budget by 60 days, and we won't see a budget until April.
Really?
Yes. And that's a month into the 21-22 budget year. And they will not be tabling a budget until April. So we would normally be back in the House already. We would have had the throne speech. The budget would have been presented yesterday, and we would have started, preparing for estimates and holding the government to account in regards to their budget and their plans for 21-22.
So just to play advocate here.
Yep.
Would COVID and, the fact that there was an election and a bunch of other different little factors that may have played a part, would that give a viable reason to postpone giving a budget until April? In your...
In the summer, Carol James was the finance minister at that time.
Yeah, I read today that she's no longer, I don't know when that happened, when she was no...
She had indicated that she would not be running again. And so when the snap election happened, she was finished as finance minister. So in the summer, she had presented a bill because this government had moved election dates, fixed election dates from the spring to the fall. And she had presented a bill that said, on the year that we have an election in the fall, it would be advisable to give an extra 30 days to for the new government to prepare their budget that spring.
Okay.
That bill passed.
And that's a bill that happened during COVID?
Yes, that bill passed in the summer of 2020.
Okay.
So when we were called back in December after the election results were known and the House was called back, we assumed we were going back to discuss programs for COVID, support programs, where we're at, those kinds of things. They introduced one bill in December, calling us back to the House during COVID when only essential travel was allowed to discuss one bill that gave them 30 more days of delay for the budget.
So now they've had 30, and now they're asking, okay.
So now the budget is 60 days later than it is usually.
Okay. So you were supposed to go back at the beginning of February.
Yes.
Now when do you actually go back?
We'll go back at the first week of March.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So in 2 weeks, we'll be back in the House. I'm assuming it's going to be a hybrid session, same as it was in December and the summer. I'll be attending because I'm one of the MLAs that can actually drive. And personally, I don't want to get on a plane during COVID, but I am able to drive and be present in Victoria. So we'll go through the throne speech, the budget will be tabled, and we'll be debating bills, and we don't know what those look like yet. And we'll also be doing estimates for each of the ministries. So at that time, as the critic for education, I will be allotted a number of hours with the Minister of Education to ask questions about the budget and the plans for 21-22, and also to hold them to account to where the money from COVID went and what kind of programs they rolled out and how effective that was.
So you're saying that you don't quite know what is going to be brought up, but do you have any indication if you guys are going to be sort of hitting the ground running? Is there like a tidal wave of bills that you're expecting to come through, or is it possibly just another one bill?
No, it will be many more than one bill, but we don't know what the topics will be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
Is that usual in your experience?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as long as it's usual then.
Well, you know, you can listen to different ministers make announcements or do press releases, and that might give you a hint that something to do with labor is going to be on the docket for this spring term. You look for those kinds of things as opposition so that you can prepare, but sometimes it's you have no idea. So we'll see what they table, and our critics will be ready to hold them to account.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring it in a little bit more local here.
Okay.
There's been lots of stuff going on in our area that I keep hearing people name drop you. Oh, we sent a letter to our MLA. Send a letter to your MLA. On and on and on. So, what are your thoughts on some of the things that you've been getting letters on?
Well, our office has been busy right through COVID. There is no doubt that although for a period of time, right at the beginning, the office was closed and we did email and telephone, the office is open now, and but most of our business is email, mail, and telephone. So we've been incredibly busy with, you know, inquiries around people looking for support during COVID and have been unable to be successful. So we help people with that. We continue to work on the Fraser Canyon Tourism Master Plan. That should be completed by the end of March. So we've been in touch with the Ministry of Transportation about highway issues and viewpoints and lookouts. We've been in touch with Ministry of Environment about parks and improvement to parks in the Fraser Canyon. We've been working on, you know, a number of issues that have come from small businesses and their ability to access support during COVID. Certainly in the village of Ashcroft, we've seen letters in regards to the hub itself and that process that is going on right now. So there's lots going on, and our office is very, very busy and very active.
So, to be a little bit selfish,
yep.
Let's talk about what's going on with the hub.
Mm-hmm.
So for everybody watching, I do have to say that I have a conflict of interest.
Yep.
I work in the building. We're part of the Hub online network.
Yep.
However, I try to stay as unbiased and impartial as I possibly can. So that
yep.
out of the way. How does that, what are your thoughts on the process that is going on? Is this in your eyes, is this a standard process? Is this something that should have possibly waited until COVID was over? Is this something that, as a person that is the education critic,
yep.
I kept wanting to say critique, but that's not, I knew that wasn't the word. The critic, is that something that you are going to have eyes, like if it goes up to the ministry, is that something that you have eyes on all through the whole process?
As someone who served on the school board, yeah. I would assume that the process is following a policy that the school board has, that it does with all of its vacant buildings. And I have to say that I have been so impressed with the hub and with the community that has come together to make this a bustling place. And I know that COVID has hit the hub, same as it has hit so many small businesses and enterprises in our region. I think it's tough to go through a process during COVID, but I also don't know when COVID's going to be gone. I wish we could say that you know, vaccinations will be done by September and we're going to be free and clear. But I think that the nuances that I hear at the press conferences from Dr. Bonnie Henry and from what I read is that's very optimistic. So if you sat on the school board and you were looking at a process and you didn't see an end to COVID, you make decisions based on the best information you have. Now, the other thing to look at is this is a bustling place as a building and a number of enterprises within it. And I have met with people from the hub, and I have indicated that it is really important to go through the process, to be a part of the process and to make sure you put your best foot forward as to what sort of solution you're looking for from the school board. And I trust that the school board will take a look at that and will do it in a very unbiased and neutral way. They are responsible not only for Ashcroft, they are responsible for a very rural and diverse school district. But, you know, there have been other instances when I look at Spence's Bridge, where the school is used by the community. I look at 70 Miles, not in this school district, but the old 70 Mile School is used by the community. Clinton's site is now the build site for the seniors' housing. So there's some precedent and some examples of partnerships that I hope that the hub is presenting to the school board. And I think once the school board makes its decision, then the community will know what that looks like. And then you say yes, thank you, or you appeal, and you do the next step.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Another topic that has been brought up to you specifically is the charging station in Spence's Bridge. Oh. So, what's going on?
Boy, that's a tough one.
Because, so just for everybody watching, Spence's Bridge has a charging, electric car charging station. They were possibly looking at adding a second charging station to this space. It is on the school area land. It has now gone through a process where the council of the area, it's not a council, it's
improvement district.
Improvement district.
Yep.
But it's akin to a village council.
Yep.
They voted to not have the charging station anymore, much to the public's, or seemingly much to the public's dismay. I haven't seen anybody actively come out and say anything against it. And now the time has sort of come and gone for Hydro to even come and take it, and yet it's still there because people have done certain things and finagled certain things to get around it. One of those things being talking to you. If that sums everything up.
Well, I don't know if it's talking to me that has done that, but I mean, what certainly I've heard from a great many people in the community. I mean, for those of us who live in rural British Columbia, any time we can enhance services that are provided in our community to the public and cause people to actually stop in our community and perhaps spend half an hour. We hope that they stop for coffee, stop for a piece of apple pie, take a walk through our community, want to come back and visit. Right. And for Spence's Bridge to have a charging station was a real bonus because they're quite costly to put in. The unfortunate thing is that the Spence's Bridge Improvement District feels it's not within their mandate to have to host the site. And they are legally elected as an improvement district board, and they have the legal responsibility to make decisions. It's caused great division in the community, which is so sad to see. And I have written to the minister, I have met with Hydro, I've met with Ministry of Transportation, I've talked to the chair of the improvement district, the regional district director, had correspondence from a great many people in the community, and have tried so hard to find a solution that works for everybody. And to date, unfortunately, I have not been successful.
The last I heard on the subject was there was some kind of not an injunction, that's not the right word, but something that pauses the process until the ministry can take a look at it.
And that's good news, because I think it needs some time to settle down and for people to come together and talk about, I mean, what is the common interest? The common interest is that the charging station is one of the few services that we offer the public in Spence's Bridge. Right. So how do we ensure with that common interest that that service continues? And, you know, I think a great many people have tried to put a little bit of what they're responsible for into the solution, but we aren't there yet. And I have every hope that we are going to find a solution that meets everybody's needs.
You had said that you found that there's great division in Spence's Bridge about this topic. The only thing I've seen is one-sided, and that's in terms of for the charging station. So have you actually heard from people that say that the charging station isn't necessary, they can get rid of it? It's detrimental, you know, it's a negative thing to our town.
I've spoken to the improvement district people who feel that it's not within their mandate to host the site. And what has been shared with me is it's not just hosting the site. There's no washrooms on site.
Yep.
And there's, you know, there is a certain maintenance that goes with, you know, having people stop and maybe picnic and need to use a washroom, etc.
Yep.
And there have been concerns about that. And there have been some negotiations around that, but no solution has been found yet. And I think it's a shame in a small community. It doesn't, you know, it could be 2 or 3 people versus 10 or 12 people, or community, you know, half and half or whatever. But there is not an agreement on it yet. And that's what I'm hoping we'll get to. It's a tough one.
Yeah. And there's always something to cut. There's always something. So might as well make sure it's one thing. Okay. Are you involved in any other, not controversial, but things that are happening in, let's say, Clinton to Spence's Bridge area? Is there anything else you're getting lots of emails about? For example, last night the Cache Creek pool came back up at the council meeting.
I haven't heard from, you know, with COVID, it's a little bit less immediate, urgent, you know, sort of issues. Certainly in Clinton, we're hearing nothing but good news about the seniors' housing.
Okay.
People are so excited. And the fact that they went from 10 units to 20 overnight, just before the election, who cares? At least it's being built. And I think that you notice that within the corridor, from Hope all the way up to Clinton, houses are selling like hotcakes. And it is a very active housing market. And so when we look at the impact of the seniors housing in Clinton and 20 units being available, you're going to assume at least half of those people that move in there are in houses in Clinton. And I know that I've talked to people in Clinton who say, you know, like, you can't buy a house here right now. And so what it does is, as people move out of their family homes into smaller units, those properties become more available for families.
Right.
And so I think that once the doors open for the complex in Clinton, you'll see a lot of movement in the Clinton area. And people are quite excited about the influx of new people and new energy in communities.
We recently started filming the Clinton council meetings as well.
Oh, okay.
So now we have 3 council meetings that we do, and we have been not in contact, but we have sent emails to the SSID.
Yep.
Yeah. SBID.
Yep.
I'm going through cancer, people. Don't judge me.
It's chemo brain.
So we're hoping to be able to get into those meetings as well and share that.
Yep.
But one thing, it's interesting seeing how all the different communities within an area. Now, Clinton's outside of your...
No, Clinton's mine.
They keep talking about the MP. That's what it
is.
It's interesting to now be a part of a third community and see how they run things differently than Cache Creek and Ashcroft.
Yep.
In terms of council. So, and I'm not aware of anything like what's happening with the hub or like what's happening with the charging station happening in Clinton. But the seniors center is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a pretty positive vibe in the community of Clinton in regards to interest in the community.
Where is that being put up?
What's that?
Where is the seniors?
It's on the old elementary school grounds.
Right.
And I'll tell you, it is the entertainment of the day for the community. The committee has worked since the day I was elected 7 years ago. We have been working on this project. And to see the shovel in the ground and to see the framing go up and the trusses on the roof. I mean, I know that the committee is there every day watching, and they have every reason to be extremely proud of the work they've done.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what else is going on? Is there anything else that you can think of that is pertinent to the area that?
Well, I think the Fraser Canyon tourism master plan is Ashcroft, Cache Creek area might be outside of the parameters because we're talking Lytton to Yale as the first phase. But I think it's going to affect the whole corridor.
Right.
And we'll see probably the completion of the master plan near the end of March. But already we're talking about improvements in social media sites. We're talking about improvement in parks, improvement in the highway and the pullouts and the viewpoints, improvement in signage. I think we're going to see, we're working with Destination BC and the tourism associations through the corridor. So I think we're going to see a lot more traffic up the Fraser Canyon into the Ashcroft-Cache Creek area, people looking for day trips. So to come up the canyon, go to Lillooet and back down the Duffy, come up, go to Spence's Bridge over Highway 8 to Merritt and down the Coke, or come up to Ashcroft and down up over the top to Logan Lake and down to Merritt and down the Coke for day trips.
Right.
We're trying very hard to ensure that we're ready for when visitors come, and that we understand our capacity, because we're working very hard with small communities, with First Nations communities, with the regional districts, to ensure that when visitors come in, they understand the need to be respectful. They understand the need that you're a visitor and you need to be respectful of the land that you're using. So some of the exciting things that are happening through the corridor is it's not that we are doing projects. It's we're advocating and facilitating projects to happen.
Cool.
So down by Alexander Bridge, of course, Pathways to Gold has been working on refurbishing the old bridge to be able to walk over it safely and to keep it in a safe condition so that that is possible. The Spuzzum First Nations Band is talking about a significant build of a campground in the Alexander Bridge area.
Nice.
They're also talking about a possible hotel and some rock climbing sites in the area. So it's a pretty significant development, and they are not just in the talking stage, they are in the planning stage. And we've talked to the ministries to indicate our support for that project, which is the entrance to the Fraser Canyon. And it is so exciting to hear that news. And as you come up the corridor, Boston Bar, as a small community, Boston Bar has received $2.2 million to reinvigorate their old train station.
Right. Oh, cool.
So they've got a group in their community that is so excited about starting that project. And so you think about a day trip up the canyon. You've got Alexandra Bridge to stop at. You then go to Boston Bar. North Bend, across from Boston Bar. We're hearing lots of people interested in going up to Nahatlich and Mahatl provincial parks. I've never been there. I plan on going up there this spring, but my understanding is that they've seen such an increase in usage. And so we're talking about improvements on the Forest Service Road and also partnering with Boothroyd Band to do some improvements at the campground. And we've talked to the Minister of Environment, who's in charge of parks, to advocate for those improvements. Then coming up the corridor, of course, at Kanaka Bar, we have the Kanaka Bar Indian Band, who is doing a rest stop where there used to be a motel and a restaurant. It's where they have the independent power project, and they have a huge pullout. And so they are envisioning the must stop, rest stop, and they will be developing that area. They hope to do it as soon as possible.
Cool.
Lytton also has a huge project happening in their community with Pathways to Gold, and honoring some of the history of First Nations in their community. They have an incredible Chinese museum that has won prizes, and it is well worth a visit. So when you think about those things happening in the corridor, our job is to make sure the highway is safe, to make sure that there's viewpoints and pullouts, to make sure that there's proper parking for hiking trails, to make sure that there's proper signage. And so we're trying to have all of that happen so that people who start to use the Fraser Canyon can see those improvements, and that momentum can grow. So although we're doing Yale to Lytton in this project, I would suggest that we're going to see improvement all the way over to Lillooet, and we're going to see improvement all the way down to Hope. Okay. And it will tie in with other projects that are happening throughout the corridor. So I'm incredibly excited about it. I think the canyon is a hidden gem that we've forgotten about. And we only have to look at the overuse of the Whistler corridor, the Sea to Sky corridor, and people from the metro area are looking to get out of Metro Vancouver for a day trip, for a weekend trip, and I think we've got lots to offer them. So that's a project that we are working very closely with the Village of Lytton and the Chamber in Lytton to coordinate and to provide some support for the admin to that. So yeah, it's a great project, and it was our goal in 2017 to pull that together for the Fraser Canyon, because so many of our small communities don't have the capacity to do a project that big, to coordinate all the agencies that need to be a part of that. And so thankfully the Chamber in Lytton stepped up, and we said we would partner with them and the village, and I'm pleased to say that 4 years hence we are near the end of the master plan, and well on our way to seeing incredible improvements through the Fraser Canyon. Cool. Yeah.
Hey, that's pretty sweet. As a person that drives the Fraser Canyon quite often for medical appointments, and my parents live down at the coast and whatever, when I first started coming up here, I saw the decline.
Yes.
So what would be nice is to see the flip happen and start seeing it come back. So that's very cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you'd like to talk about at this time?
Well, I think that I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about COVID.
Sure.
And about you know, the impact that COVID has had on everything we do. And you know, I think that people have been very stoic. Many have been very scared and very concerned. We've been very fortunate to have Dr. Bonnie Henry as our lead on the COVID file. As much as people get frustrated and tired, I call it COVID weary, she has done an incredible job for the people of British Columbia. I personally, when I look at COVID, I have a great deal of empathy for anyone who has lost a loved one or who has been sick with COVID. I think that, you know, when we hear from people that, you know, it's like having the flu, yes, it is like that for a great many people. But we only have to look at some of the stories that we see on TV, hear some of the personal stories to know that for some people, it is not like the flu. And so to our frontline workers, thank you to all of them. It's been incredible, and I know people are tired. But it's the hang in there. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it isn't the train. It is actually vaccine. And although as we watch the vaccine rollout, it is just like everything else that has happened in COVID. What will go wrong will, what can go wrong will go wrong. But have faith. The goal is to get that vaccine out as quickly as possible and to use it as effectively as possible. And so we have to have, trust and faith in the people who have the expertise. Further to, the negatives of COVID, I think that personally, I look at some of the things that we've learned during COVID. And I think that we've all had enough time at home by ourselves to reflect on some of the positive things around COVID. Talking about healthcare today and the fact that there was a time when you mentioned telehealth to people, they would all, curl up their lip and I'm not doing that. And if I can't see a doctor, it's not worth it. Well, you know what? We found out during COVID that there are other ways to perhaps do things that aren't urgent and aren't as emergent. We've learned to be comfortable with Zoom.
Well, unless you're not wearing your pants or you look like a kitty.
We've learned to, I think one of the things we've also learned is that we had a concern, a great many of us had a concern about the amount of time that kids spend on machinery and on games and that sort of thing. And I think all of us have learned that technology will never take the place of being in the same room with someone, of giving someone a hug. So that's good. I've said to my colleagues, I don't have any problem doing the work on Zoom. We have a problem doing the fun on Zoom. And so if we can include technology in our workplace, but remind ourselves the importance of getting together and being a part of a family and part of a community, I think that we'll be able to focus a little bit more on what we do with technology and how important a social life is. So as tough as it is, I think we're a ways away yet, and it is around the corner, but the corner is a long one. And so hang in there and do what you need to do, and when you're not feeling okay, let someone know, because it's not unusual to feel out of sorts. And it's okay to feel out of sorts, and it's okay to say you're out of sorts, because it's been a long haul. Whoever thought a year ago that we would still be in isolation in our homes? And yet it's so incredibly important.
I think I have a bit of a unique thing with COVID, because my life hasn't changed. I worked from the minute that this thing started. I probably worked more during COVID than I did beforehand. I have lots of doctor's appointments. I go to Kelowna, I go everywhere. Yeah. What's amazing is everybody says isolation and everybody whatever. But other than malls and movie theaters, everything that I've had to do has still been available. Yeah. So it just shows that despite the fact that this terrible thing is happening, that we can still move forward. My only question to you is about COVID is, so the vaccines are real, right?
Yes. Absolutely. I sure hope so. I'm going to tell you absolutely yes, and I believe they are. Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's been an interesting time, and not only have we looked at COVID and what it's done to our communities, our families, us personally, I think that we've dealt with the craziness across the line, and the United States and their politics and what's going on down there. And I think a great number of us have been very thankful and have a new gratitude for where we live and how we live. And so as much as it was unsettling to have a snap election during COVID, which I felt was unnecessary, it is what it is, and we move forward from here.
Do you think things would have changed if the election went on at the normal time?
Absolutely.
Or do you think that it would have still been, the NDP supermajority and all that kind of stuff?
No, I think that, I don't know about you and the people you talk to, but I'm getting a sense from people that they are tired, that the dollars that were promised before Christmas, the $500 and $1,000, the 300,000 people who haven't received their dollars yet aren't very happy with the government.
We actually have somebody that hasn't gotten their.
I got it today.
Did you?
Yeah. But, hang
on, sorry. When did you apply?
2 months ago.
Yeah. So a number of promises were made. We look at the surge that happened right after the election. We look at the number of deaths in long-term care. We look at the report that was done in the summer and was tabled with government 2 days before the election was called and was never made public. We look at the refusal of government to put in place rapid testing, which has been used in the United States and in Canada and in other provinces, and could possibly have saved lives in long-term care, and the refusal of BC to implement that. We have millions of tests sitting in a warehouse. It is absolutely insane. So when we look at all those things and we think about the election date, which was the fall of 2021, you see why Mr. Horgan called a snap election. He wanted it done before all those things came home to roost.
I don't want to drag this out.
Yep.
But have you had a COVID test done yet?
No.
Okay. Do you have to get one to go back to the Legislative Assembly?
No.
Interesting. Okay. And last question for me, and then we're gonna shut it down, and we'll save it all for the next time we meet in probably 3 months.
Yep.
If you had the opportunity, would you run for head of the Liberal Party?
No.
Just thought I'd ask.
I am right now serving on the executive.
Yep. I
am a caucus appointment to the executive, and I am on the Rules Committee for the leadership.
Okay.
It is a heavy task because it is such important work. And we have, like 2017, when the numbers were so tight, we had a little comeuppance. But in 2020, we had a major butt kick. And we have a lot of work to do as a party. And I'm glad to be a part of that. I'm excited about a leadership campaign that opens the doors to new thinking and new opportunity. And I'm glad to be a part of the group that will set the foundation. So that I feel that everyone has a role to play. And that's the role I'm taking this time around.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming in. We did 2 interviews today, so you've been here for a while. I'm going to let you go. So Jackie Tegart, everybody, and hopefully we'll have you back in another 2 or 3 months.
For sure.
Right on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you all later.
Thank you.